for our Growing with MedMMAP and MedAccred webinar series. I'm Scott Shine, the National Program Manager for the Medical Manufacturers MedAccred Accreditation Pathway Program, also known as MedMMAP. It's a mouthful. And I'm here with GenEdge, which is the Manufacturing Extension Partnership based in Virginia. April Schmidt is our Organizational Development Practice Manager, is also nice enough to co-host with me today and help produce our webinar series. Our format for today is the following. We're going to hit you with a lot of information in a very short period of time. We're hoping to get a lot of value out of this 60 minutes. We'll get a quick overview of MedAccred from Connie Conboy and Justin McCabe from the MedAccred Accreditors and Performance Review Institute, also known as PRI. We'll get a quick overview from myself on MedMMAP and how we support manufacturers pursuing the MedAccred certification. Then we'll be followed by 10 to 15 minutes from Danette from Edwards Life Sciences on the importance of MedAccred to their organization as an OEM. Then Jim Rigney will follow up with 10 to 15 minutes giving you the supplier perspective from TG3 Electronics on their certification experience. And then 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A. We really want to focus on that. We want to give you ample opportunity to get your questions in today. In addition, we'll have an experienced subject matter expert or two here attending who have performed pre-audit assessments through MedMMAP. So if you have even detailed technical questions, we're hoping to get those answered today. A few quick ground rules. Please stay on mute until the Q&A portion of the webinar. You may submit questions or comments through the chat as we go. We will collect the questions and provide them to our speakers during the Q&A. Please indicate your name, your company, and any speaker you wish to direct the question. Once we have exhausted those questions, we'll move on to live Q&A. Please give a digital reaction, thumbs up, so we may call on you. And finally, we'll have a quick Zoom poll at the end with a few questions. Please take a couple of seconds and fill that out if you can. April?
Thank you so much. An additional note is we are recording today's session and we will send that out along with a copy of the PowerPoint slides. Please look for that in either your inbox or your spam folder later this week. And I have the privilege of introducing our first speaker, which is PRI. And that is from MedAccred Accreditors at PRI, to be more specific. Connie Conboy is the director of MedAccred, and she's responsible for the program. It's an industry-managed critical manufacturing supply chain oversight program for the medical device industry. She is joined by her colleague, Justin McCabe, who's the manager from the MedAccred program. Connie and Justin.
Thank you, April. Now I'd like to introduce the MedAccred program through a short video that was filmed at the MD&M show in February of 2020. Back in the good old days when we were face-to-face at meetings and conferences, this was filmed, and in the video, you'll hear from industry experts from major medical device companies and from suppliers like yourselves that have been through the MedAccred accreditation process. So let's play the video.
The subscribing companies to MedAccred are the top tier medical device manufacturers in the world. Stryker, Becton Dickinson, Boston Scientific, Medtronic.
I see MedAccred as an initiative that will be widely used across most of the medical device manufacturers, if not all.
We really are ensuring that the suppliers that get accredited are manufacturing with the highest possible standards.
As a result, we produce a safe product.
These are products that could end up in my body and my relatives, so they have to be done right because literally lives are at stake.
MedAccred gives us the ability to do something that practically would be very difficult for us to do on our own.
It drives cost out of the process, and it allows us to actually redirect our resources to more value-added activities.
We anticipate that this will become the standard expectation for supplier certification. And in particular, what that means is that the quality of our componentry and therefore our products will increase and therefore will help ensure patient safety in the end. And ultimately that's what we're in business to do, right, is protect our patients.
In the future, if suppliers are not MedAccred accredited, the subscribing OEMs just move to the next supplier or manufacturer.
Having that accreditation really sets them apart from other suppliers that are not.
What MedAccred has allowed us to do is partner with those larger medical device organizations globally and get deeper within their leadership structure and create better relationships.
Therefore, it's almost becoming essential that companies become accredited if they want to participate with these subscriber companies.
What MedAccred brings is that same assurity in processes and in verification and certification that NADCAP has brought for a very long period of time, and that's welcomed from us from the medical device area.
But at the end, it's validating that we are producing the high quality products for medical industry.
It's done nothing but made us better and better as we're moving forward.
The MedAccred audit's very different because it's very narrowly scoped.
Basically, companies need to have a quality management system in place. Quality auditor comes in for a QMS audit, and he looks at many facets of your company, from sales to purchasing to production.
They have a difficult job in that they look at a very wide range of topics, and they generally don't go very deep.
Where with MedAccred, it's just the opposite. The actual audit is only an inch wide, but a mile deep.
You have some world-class companies that determine the criteria.
This is the wave of the future. We can now cut back on our audits and go forward with a better system than what we have today.
I strongly suggest that contract manufacturers will join this program.
As we see more and more subscribers joining, eventually it will become just like the ISO certification, where you need to have accreditation in order to be considered.
I would tell suppliers, please get involved, participate.
It represents a good opportunity to expand your business all throughout the industry.
That drives the quality of our products and ultimately leads towards improved patient safety.
I truly believe that we have joined a community that cares about quality.
Thank you. And now let's go, yes, to the first slide. So now that you've heard about MedAccred in terms of what it does to improve product quality, and most importantly, it's designed to improve patient safety, you need to understand how the program works. And my organization is a not-for-profit trade association. We administer the program for the medical device industry. In fact, 10 of the major medical device companies are subscribing, and the list continues to grow. These companies actually run the program. So we have Edwards Life Sciences, Medtronic, Johnson & Johnson, Baxter, Becton Dickinson, Roche Diagnostics, Philips, Stryker, Boston Scientific, and Bausch Health. As subscribers, they provide funding. They also determine the audit criteria, and they interview and select the auditors. They have full visibility into all the audit findings. They're able to see how the findings are closed out by the supplier. They will review all of the audit findings and examine how you have addressed those findings. And once they're satisfied, they'll actually vote to grant you accreditation. So your accreditation actually comes from these 10 subscribing companies. Next slide. Now let's go to the real story, what the suppliers actually think. So you see, this is a survey that was recently completed. It was completed in August of 2020, and we had a 63% response rate. We sent it to every company that has been through an accreditation audit, and 89% of them reported that it added value. It also improved quality. So in terms of quality outcomes, 71% said it improved their quality, 61% said it reduced in-house defect rates, 56% said it reduced defective product escaping to customers, and they also saw strong business outcomes. So 58% saw an increase in revenue, 62% said it contributed to winning new customers, 69% said it improved their process efficiency, and 73% said it improved their customer satisfaction. So that gives you a little perspective on the program. And next, I'm going to hand it back over to April.
Thank you so much, Connie, for that introduction to MedAccred. So I would like to now introduce Scott Shine. Scott is the National Program Manager for MedMMAP, and he will provide a quick overview of the program and how it supports U.S. manufacturers interested in getting started with their MedAccred accreditation. Scott.
Thanks, April. Just real quick, for this audience, all of you may not be aware of what a manufacturing extension partnership is in the services that we provide. The MEP network, which is national, we have 51 centers, including one in every state in Puerto Rico, and sponsored by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, overseen by the U.S. Department of Commerce, provides various services across the country, ranging from operational improvements to marketing to strategy. This particular initiative is really to reinforce the U.S. manufacturing base within the medical device industry, and that is what the key focus is of the NIST grant here, and that's what MedMMAP is a NIST grant that was started this past year, and the mission, which is driven by Gen Edge, based here in Virginia. Even though we're based in Virginia, this is a national program. So if you are a business located in any state or Puerto Rico, we are in a position to support you through the MedMMAP program to begin your road on MedAccred accreditation. And what does that mean specifically? And where do we fit and where does PRI fit? And so let me see if I can kind of map that out for you on the left, which is, once you've made the strategic decision to go down the certification path for MedAccred, the MEP centers are trained up to support across the critical processes to help you evaluate your critical process, perform gap assessments, develop a gap closure plan. That's really what our mission is to maximize the possibility of you being successful in earning your MedAccred certification. That is really what our goals are in this program, and that's really what our NIST sponsors' goals are in this program. So that's the key part of it. We also are available to do some assistance in closing these findings. We are, as part of the grant, in a position to provide, I'll call, low-touch support in helping to close these any findings during the pre-audit. If it's a higher touch, or let's say you need a 5S or lean type of service, the MEP centers are very well positioned to provide that, but that may be an additional project. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. But I think the experience, this is the second phase of this, and the first phase, the success stories, you'll hear some of them through the webinar series around how the MEP centers and how MedMMAP supported their success in earning their MedAccred certification, which again, we'll hear throughout the afternoon how that's increasingly required among the medical device industry. And where are we? Just who's participating? We have 9 MEP centers, including Gen Edge, who are participating in this program, located throughout the country in Puerto Rico. So really, if you're not in California, let's say you're in Nevada, we can still support you in Nevada. So don't let this map deceive you and do, well, I'm not, I'm in Texas, so my business isn't considered here. We travel, we can support throughout the network. So if you figure out throughout this webinar series that this is of strategic importance to your company, you want to learn more, you see a potential return on investment, you see an opportunity to maybe diversify even, then please reach out to me and we can talk more about it and see how we can get you started through MedMMAP.
Next, I would like to introduce Danette. Danette is the Senior Director of Global Supplier Quality at Edward Life Sciences and has more than 25 years of experience in the medical device industry, spanning product development, engineering, regulatory affairs, and quality. She joined Edwards in 2007 and has spent the last 6 years in the supplier quality engineering function and moved into a newly developed corporate leadership role for supplier quality in 2020. Danette?
Thanks so much, April. Super happy to be here to talk about Edwards' journey with MedAccred. And just to give everyone a little bit of perspective about Edwards Life Sciences and what we do, we're known as being a heart valve company. So you can see our major product lines there are the transcatheter heart valve therapies, surgical structural heart therapies, and then we also have critical care and vascular therapies. And you can see a little bit from the pictures there, what our components would look like. So we've got a lot of injection molding, extrusions, we've got some metals frames, we've got some tissues and some cloths and textiles, and then we also have some electronics. So it spans a lot of different types of suppliers across the board. And if you go to the next page, so this is a quote from our corporate vice president, Joe Nuzalese, and this it was about a year ago, and where our suppliers are our single greatest supply chain risk. And what this really means is the ability for Edwards to get those products to our patients. The biggest risk is our suppliers. So what can we do to eliminate that risk and have our suppliers be not a risk, but be our strongest asset? And so we started an overall supplier improvement initiative a couple of years ago. And if you go to the next page, high level of what that means is really that we are expecting our supply base to match or exceed our internal manufacturing capabilities. So we really want our suppliers to be an extension of our own manufacturing and be partners with us and have those same capabilities. And you can see what some of the expectations there are with quality, growth, delivery, and then cost as well. So if you go to the next page, then is how do we do that? So we've got a lot of what we're calling our end-to-end supplier management. So that's what the end-to-end stands for, our end-to-end supplier management program. And we've got some things where we're doing technical assessments and creating gap assessments on capabilities for suppliers. We're doing regular business reviews and improvement plans. We're deploying CCPs at the supplier. And of course, what fits into this program as well is the MedAccred accreditation. And the intent of all these different programs is to raise the capabilities of our suppliers. So they are capable at operating at the levels that we're expecting them. And you see down in the quotes, we've got this up or out kind of mentality. So we're really working with those suppliers to get that capability up to a certain level. And if they are incapable of doing that, then we will look for new suppliers that can meet those capabilities. And you can see also there from that regional map, one of our other goals is to make sure that throughout our global manufacturing sites that we do have suppliers that are based in those regions. And this year with COVID, that became especially true with some problems with shipping and getting products across transit. So having those capabilities are important to us as well. So if you go to the next slide, then we can talk about how MedAccred really fits into this. So the MedAccred audits really go deep on that critical process capability. So what they tell us is if a supplier is already accredited by MedAccred, it tells us that they are stable and capable in that process capability or in that critical process. So it gives us a baseline to understand that they've already met some requirements that we're looking for. In addition, the MedAccred will also look at the necessary equipment, the controls, the personnel, the training, the validation, and their sub-tier controls. How are they managing their suppliers as well? So it gives us a great baseline to start with a new supplier. And if you go to the next slide, this is I love this one, it gives you a really good visual of what the MedAccred audit does. So from my side, I'm supplier quality. So we do QMS audits, right? So we go in and we look really broadly. We're looking for objective evidence that a supplier meets its quality initiatives and requirements. But we don't really go deep. And what the MedAccred audit does is it goes really deep on that critical process. So it's really going deep and understanding that they're stable and capable in that process. And then if you go to the next slide, this slide gives you all of the critical process accreditations that MedAccred offers. So as you saw on my first slide, for Edwards, this means that plastics extrusion, plastics injection molding, mechanical assembly, the electronics, of course, packaging and sterilization, and then metal. So almost all of these apply to our suppliers and our products. We've got suppliers in just nearly every single bucket, which is great for us. And then I think on the next slide, so what does this mean for Edwards and how are we incorporating this? So Edwards, we became a MedAccred subscriber in 2020. So we've been doing on this journey. In fact, we met with MedAccred during that, where the video was being shown earlier. So we've just started on this journey. And then, like I said, what that accreditation really gives us is that confidence in the supplier's ability to be stable and capable in that commodity process. And our next steps are then in 2021, we're going to incorporate the MedAccred audits into our own quality systems so we can start leveraging them in place of our own audits and have that additional oversight. And then where the industry is really going as well with those subscribers is that new suppliers will be expected to have this accreditation. It'll be the cost of entry into the medical device realm. And then I have just, we actually created an animated video for Edwards and for our suppliers. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to show that here. And it just kind of goes over that overall strategy of why why MedAccred is so important to us now and why having those capabilities built into our suppliers is so important for us to be able to provide those, our products to our patients.
Meet Luke, the representative of an Edwards supplier. Luke would like his company to become a preferred partner, but is unfamiliar with the new and improved requirements. The Edwards team is happy to share more about their supplier management strategy. The team tells Luke that Edwards' strengths in quality engineering, strategic sourcing, and supplier engineering are central to its supplier excellence program. Edwards considers its preferred partners as its extension and expects them to perform at Edwards' capabilities. Therefore, Edwards' growth strategy requires its supply base to match or exceed its internal manufacturing capabilities to solve complex product and supply chain problems. What differentiates Edwards' end-to-end supplier management system is its category strategy that's driving to meet its current and future needs through alignment of its preferred partners to its patients-first mindset, high technical capability, and the ability to grow with Edwards. But what are the requirements for Luke's company to become a preferred Edwards partner? First, in alignment with Edwards' patient-first mentality, all preferred suppliers are required to adhere to Edwards' critical control points to ensure consistency in customer experience. Deviations in supplies can affect Edwards' patients. Therefore, Edwards requires all of its suppliers to detect and prevent potential issues at the source and maintain excellent statistical control and response mechanisms. The second step is technical assessment scoring, which allows the Edwards team to understand the supplier's capabilities and, if needed, help create an improvement plan to move to a stable and capable level, which will eventually allow Luke's company to become best in class. The third requirement is lean systems. Edwards evaluates the proximity of supplier facilities to Edwards manufacturing plants, but insists upon alignment with demand planning, replenishment, and information flow with Edwards business systems for an effective flow-pull strategy. The final requirement is to match the problem-solving and inspection capabilities of suppliers with Edwards standards. Hence, Luke's company needs to develop advanced problem-solving methodologies and inspection capabilities to tackle supply chain and product problems. Upon meeting all of these requirements, Luke's company can become a preferred Edwards partner. And what does that mean for Edwards? The right quantity of good parts in a box, on a truck, with the right paperwork that Edwards does not have to inspect.
So you can see how the MedAccred accreditation fits right into our strategy and raising those capabilities with our suppliers. So we're happy to be partners with them. And I know we'll have a question and answer session in a few minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions as well. So thank you, April.
Thank you. And now moving on to Jim. Jim Rigney is with TG3 Electronics. Jim has been in the electronics industry for over 30 years and has been with TG Electronics for almost 7. He's served in the industrial, automotive, and now medical markets during his career. Jim has held leadership positions in engineering, operations, and is currently the Director of Quality at TG3 Electronics. He has been a certified professional PMP since 2006 and a Six Sigma Black Belt since 2015. TG3 Electronics earned their MedAccred certification in April of 2020 with assistance from the MedMMAP program. Jim?
Thank you, April. I appreciate that. I really appreciate the opportunity to present our experience with MedMMAP and MedAccred, and hopefully maybe help somebody else out there that's on the fence that would like to take that next step. So you could go ahead and next slide. Just a quick introduction to TG3. We're a family-owned and operated business. We've been in business for about 34 years. We're in the wonderful Kenosha, Wisconsin area, right between Chicago and Milwaukee. 45,000 square foot facility. We are ISO compliant, and as I'll cover, we also went to and got our medical 13485 compliance too after MedAccred. MedAccred certified. We have an IPC trainer on staff that makes sure everybody's trained, and we also do our own self-UL certification for manufacturing. Next slide. Just to kind of give you a diverse area, obviously we make medical products, but we're also in other industries such as mobile data. We do bump bars for McDonald's and Culver's and stuff for kitchen controls. Low profile type keyboards for rack systems. Government, almost all the police cars out there have a TG3 keyboard. And then really in the custom area is really where MedAccred actually helped us cross over into those custom medical applications. Next slide. So how did we get involved in MedAccred? Well, obviously we're closely associated with Stryker. We did make some Stryker products in probably back 2014. After our first Stryker product, we were tier 2 supplier to one of their tier 1s. So we decided to go tier 1 supplier. We had a couple supplier audits through Stryker and become a tier 1 supplier back in 2015. In 2016, they actually mentioned MedAccred and their plans and how they subscribed, and they were planning on moving to MedAccred, and it would be in our best interest if they wanted to continue for future business to get involved. Then we found out about the MedMMAP introduced then back in 2018. And it took us about a year of deciding which way we were going to go before we actually went forward. And we had our first pre-assessment in August 2019. And we're in a bit of a unique situation expressed by the pre-assessor auditor that we had a big gap, one of the largest gaps that they found. So I think it was to our advantage, and also it was a lot of work and a lot of disadvantage that we could actually form a lot of our procedures around the MedAccred accreditation itself. So we could get very specific and lay out the groundwork for everything. So it took us I'd say about 5 months with obviously the folks from MedMMAP's help. And we received our accreditation on March 31st of last year. We're getting ready for our recertification here next Monday. So it should be some fun times as well. Next slide. So on the journey, it's like, how do I justify the MedAccred investment? We did a lot of estimation on additional controls, equipment, resources, all those kind of things. And then we looked at the ROI on the new business at stake. With Stryker, a lot of their new business, we found that we felt like, from a marketing standpoint, we would price ourselves out of the business if we didn't bring in the PCBA assemblies. And that's how we're MedAccred certified to printed circuit board assemblies. That's our area of certification. So by bringing that in-house and not having to buy it from one of their other MedAccred certified suppliers, we were able to be competitive and win the business. So we did the full justification based off of just pretty much that business package, and we were able to justify it. Using the MedAccred, and then, like I said, we'll cover the results, but there's a lot more upside than just that business package. So I'll cover that in a minute. But using MedAccred resources, we were teamed up with Elliot Dratch from CMTC out in California. I think your local Chicago guys were busy at the time. So Elliot was nice enough to fly over here and help us out. So he was with us during the pre-assessment and all the way through the process. He set up some shared folders for us, a lot of resources. We had regular meetings, ongoing weekly standing meetings where we developed, and between modifying and creating procedures, he was there to help us review those, give us some samples of stuff that we needed, and back and forth before we actually implemented it. And it was just it really was nice to have somebody with that much experience to kind of hold our hand through the whole process and give us guidance. And I'd say it was invaluable, and it's awesome. It's an awesome resource for anyone that's going through this process to have. So some of the biggest hurdles we had during our journey, and obviously still improving, is, I think we had a lot of good controls. I know we had a lot of good controls, but the problem it was more tribal knowledge and not as much documentation. So that's where we found our biggest gaps, is just doing the right things, but maybe not doing them consistently and documented and training. So that really helped close the gaps. And then the other thing is we're doing, again, a lot of the right things, but unless you record it, when it comes to an audit, you didn't do it. So just as you learn in ISO, say as you do as you say, and prove it, it really goes that same way. And the fact that this is a mile deep, you really need to understand what's going on all the way through the process and be able to do that. And I think one of the biggest challenges is taking the current infrastructure, and again, this is part of the estimated investment, but how many extra people do you need? What extra resources do you need? Because obviously we have a day job and we have to keep doing those same tasks every day. So this, in addition to that, was challenge. It was a big challenge, but we had a light at the end of the tunnel, so it wasn't too bad. Next slide. So what are our results? So I gave you kind of the timeline, the hurdles and stuff that we went over, our journey, and then results. Well, I think the biggest thing is I've found in my quality journey, my career, is it's really hard to justify quality type of projects because it's hard to justify cost avoidance. But I think we see that consistently, and I could say MedAccred has paid back dividends just in eliminating cost avoidance, having the right controls in place, one, to contain problems at the source, and then learning from those problems and continuing to make improvements and putting preventive measures in place so that those problems aren't found anymore. So I think that's been huge. Traceability, as part of our journey to 1345 from the medical ISO and MedAccred, it's a really important part. So trying to take our system and really start to lock down traceability from lots and be able to work that into our current ERP system and structure. And then process traceability along the way, taking all those key processes, especially when you're doing any type of inspections and testing, and then validating all that stuff at the end before things get shipped. It really has locked down and shown us what things are happening, what's important, and what needs to be fed back and improved on in the future. Improved processes. Obviously, we have a lot of different product groups, and they're not all medical. So a lot of the improved processes that we've seen through MedAccred has been beneficial for all of our non-medical type customers. So we're not only saving money and avoiding costs on the medical stuff, but we've also implemented a lot of those type of things across the board that's saved in some of the other areas. With going through MedAccred, it really closed the gaps between our ISO and the regular ISO, and then the medical version of ISO. And the big gaps there were probably traceability. That was the ones that were probably our biggest hurdle. So once we implemented those traceable processes for MedAccred, it was an easy jump to go over to 1345. In fact, we got the 1345 certification and MedAccred approval within a month of each other. So it was really kind of a good month, especially during that March, April timeframe of 2020, when nobody was really having any fun. We could at least have something to celebrate. So, and all these certifications and capability has improved our credibility with customers. When you have these certifications, it speaks highly whenever they don't know you. You've got all these certifications, and we try to lead with that in our marketing programs. We've recently switched over a director of sales and marketing, and he's hoping to use all these improved capabilities to go out and get, additional business, exposure here, and trying to share all of our opportunities. You've been nice enough to say we could utilize some of this too as well. So I think it really is an awesome way to kind of, show off what you're capable of. And then new business opportunities. Like I said, our original justification was just on the package we were working on that we knew had to be MedAccred certified. But by becoming MedAccred certified, it really opened us up, because now we're on that list, and we all of a sudden started getting opportunity after opportunity within at least the Stryker organization, because they knew we were certified. And again, it builds that trust that the customer has with you now, because they know what you're capable of, and they have given us a lot of different opportunities. So, and then exposure to the other MedAccred subscribers. We're hoping that that would help us get our foot in the door with some of these other companies that maybe didn't know who we were. But MedAccred is going to be a nice badge to kind of show for everybody. Next slide. I think that pretty much covers the presentation. I tried to keep it short and sweet so we could spend as much time on questions and answers as possible. But if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Learn more at TG3 Electronics. Our website's tg3electronics.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much to our speakers today. As we reviewed at the beginning, we now have time for our question and answer panel. I know everybody has a different comfort level, and some people feel comfortable asking their questions live. And if you would like to ask your question live, I'd ask that down at the bottom you see your reaction tools. If you could use the thumbs up to signal that you have a question that you would like to ask live. If you have a question and you don't feel comfortable asking it live, then I'd ask that you use the chat and post your question there so that we can make sure that we respond to that. I know we will be launching a Zoom poll as well, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time to type in those questions if you have them. So the poll has now been launched and is live, so we'd certainly appreciate your taking a couple of seconds to be able to answer these questions for us, as that helps us with future programming and understanding what your needs are as attendees today. So far, I'm not seeing any brave individuals who've posted a thumb reaction letting me know that they have a live question that they want to ask. One of the questions I'm seeing for our speakers is, what do you see as being the long-term value of MedAccred to your company and suppliers who choose to earn that certification?
I can go ahead and take that one, April.
Thank you, Danette.
And others can jump in, yeah, of course, as well. Yeah, so for Edwards, what we're seeing we're seeing those suppliers that are becoming MedAccred, it's like I said, it's becoming that baseline. And where I believe the industry is going to be going is that's going to probably, it's essentially going to be a barrier to entry into medical device companies. Because without that, we have to do a lot more work. So the value to us is that the MedAccred already gives us that baseline and lets us know that the supplier is stable and capable. And we will, of course, we still will have to conduct, our quality audits and that sort of thing, but they'll probably be a lot less, they'll be scoped down more and less time and probably less often. So that's what we're working on in 2021, is incorporating that into our quality system to see what that exactly looks like. But I think there's value from both sides, is that it takes less work on our side to manage those suppliers because we know they've already got that capability built in, and we can spend our focus on really, on the new product development and that sort of thing. And the advantage to the suppliers is that they've got that entry into the multiple subscribers.
Thank you, Danette. Do any of our other panelists have a response that they would like to contribute? Otherwise, we did get a question in the chat. Danette, would you be able to explain how this program differs from ISO 13485 in regards to outcomes for your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't get away from ISO 13485 quality audits. I mean, that's a compliance issue. We have to do that for the FDA, for a notified body. So we will be still conducting those. But there is a difference. So the ISO 13485 audits, we're looking very broadly, and we're looking for just high level objective evidence that those suppliers are meeting those requirements. They're spot audits. So it doesn't really tell you, it gives you an idea that they're performing well. But it's a spot audit. But it does give us that point, which is why we still do them. As opposed to the MedAccred process audits, they're going very deep. So for example, if they're doing injection molding, they're looking at that equipment, they're looking at how those people are trained, they're looking at they've got the capabilities on the floor. And Connie can probably give this, but I think the audit checklist for the injection molding is something along the lines of 70 or 80 pages. So they're going very deep on that aspect, and they are not doing the typical quality aspects as well. The one exception to that is sterilizers. So MedAccred does fulfill all of the 1345 requirements as well as the process. So that's the one where they do both, but on all the others, it's a deep process audit, and they're not doing the broad quality aspects as well. So for us, it's complementary. We consider that to be complementary. So we've got this ISO 13485 that gives us the compliance and the quality side, and then we've got the MedAccred, which gives us that deep process capability side as well.
Yeah, I would add as well the PCBA accreditation, the checklist. I looked it up yesterday. It's 70 pages, with 59 pages of that being questions, and both in procedures and compliance. So there's really two parts of it. You got to make sure that you know what you're supposed to do, but then you have to also show that you have records that you're actually doing it. So, and I agree, it's very deep. It's really, MedAccred's really more process oriented, and how you design the process, validate the process, control the process. So they usually pick like 3 different parts that are related to the medical industry, and they walk through basically those 59 pages of questions on each one of those products. And then, that's where they're seeing that you're not only just doing it for one product, but you're doing it for multiple products, where the 1345, like you said, cover a lot of different areas, almost every department in the company. And you can't go as deep because you're covering such a width.
Thank you, Danette and Jim, for those responses. Also had a question that looks to be maybe for Connie and Justin about, would someone evaluate PRI services?
In terms of Performance Review Institute, which is PRI, we administer the program for the medical device industry. So those 10 subscribers that you see, they really make the decisions for the program, but we're a not-for-profit trade association. So we're really the sole organization that would be administering that program for industry. And you would register with us to get an accreditation audit. We'd send an auditor to your facility and conduct the audit. So, and we have a staff engineer that initially reviews that audit, and we'll be working with you to make sure that your issues, your findings are closed out properly. Before then, we pass it along to the representatives from the medical device companies that are subscribing to the program, and then they review it and finally decide, whether they want to grant accreditation or not. So we're really in that space where we're making sure that the program runs properly. And we also have, and some of you might be familiar with the fact that we run the NADCAP program as well for the aerospace industry. So when we're talking about Performance Review Institute, my organization, we are also administering a program very similar to the MedAccred program for the aerospace and defense industry. And we've been doing that for over 30 years. So we do over 6,000 audits a year globally for NADCAP, which is the aerospace and defense industry, as well as now the new program, MedAccred, for the medical device industry.
Thank you for that very thorough answer. I know we've got some other questions that have come up in the chat, so thank you. One of the questions is for a small manufacturer, about how much is the investment to go through the process for accreditation? And is there an ongoing expense related to that? I'm not sure who on our panel might be able to address that, or if that's a question that we would need to respond to in a different format.
Well, I can answer just the pricing of the audit. So if you are interested in the accreditation audit, the price for that, depending on which process you have, it really defines the number of days that the audit would take place. But let's say it's a plastics injection molding audit. That would be a 3-day audit. If your facility's in the US, it's $7,300. That's all in, no additional travel costs or any other charges. If you have maybe a printed circuit board assembly audit, that's a 4-day audit. So that would be $8,615 all in, no additional costs. But that's specific to your accreditation audit. And that would be something that you would do annually. So that would be each year you would schedule an audit until you achieve what's called merit. And then once you're on merit, after your 3rd successful year and you have to meet certain metrics, then you can be on an 18-month schedule. So at that point, you're only doing the accreditation process and the audit once every 18 months. And I'm sure Jim's going to be striving to achieve that soon, right, Jim?
Absolutely. I would say the other costs are going to be, directly affected to how much gap that you have in additional controls you need to meet the, the certification requirements. I mean, going through the pre-assessment and going through even before the pre-assessment, getting the questions and being able to kind of do a self audit. It really is eye-opening to the point of how are we going to control this and what do we need? And that's kind of what we did initially, even before we got to the pre-assessment and got involved with MedMMAP, because MedMMAP obviously covers the costs for the consulting and help along the way, but you still, they're not going to buy the equipment for you. So you still have to buy equipment and decide, what do you need from a resources standpoint, and just kind of do your own justification of ROI. In our case, it was an easy one. It was a no-brainer.
Have you had to hire additional staff or individuals to oversee the program and accreditation process?
I would say we stayed fairly lean. We've stretched some resources, probably a little more sometimes than they should be. So I would say you can probably count on some additional, indirect type people to support it as well. Maybe, on the process side or the quality side, but not as much on people, but it was more on equipment and controls, testers and inspection machines and those kind of things. Maybe we didn't quite have the capability to do.
So who does the pre-assessment audit? Is that PRI or MEP?
I'll take that one. The answer is it depends. And so part of this program is the MEP Centers partnering with PRI to train up some of their subject matter experts. So depending on the critical process, you may have both PRI and an MEP subject matter expert in training on site to support pre-audit assessment. If it is an experienced MEP subject matter expert who's performed pre-audit assessments previously on a certain critical process, it may just be the MEP Center supporting. So depending on where you are geographically, what your critical process is, which MEP Center is supporting, it could be either or. Well, it's either both or one. It's either you're going to have both PRI, a staff engineer, and an MEP Center supporting, or just an experienced MEP Center subject matter expert.
In our case, we had both.
Thank you. So another question, what are your future expectations for supplier adoption of MedAccred, and how will MedAccred evolve within your supply chain? That is for our speakers.
I like the idea that even though we're PCBA accredited, because we have access to the resources from PRI, we can see all the other audits out there. So if we have wire assemblies, cable assemblies, PC boards, just PC board houses, all those things we can utilize and borrow some of those audit questions to try to make our supply base better and kind of develop them around our auditing system. So even if they don't become MedAccred certified, we can still use MedAccred and the resources behind it to kind of help make them better, stronger.
And from our perspective as well, and I think I mentioned that, so in 2021, for Edwards, we'll be incorporating MedAccred into our quality system, which means they will be on our approved supplier list. So they'll be a supplier for Edwards. We'll be leveraging those audits. And so much what Jim just said, being a subscriber gives us the access to all of the audits and to the audit criteria. So that also helps establish those criteria. And from us being a subscriber, we can have people on those task forces that actually establish the criteria and select the auditors. So that really helps us, we can put our subject matter experts on those to help establish those criteria and drive that as well. So really, it becomes a part of our operation and how we do things and how we manage our suppliers as we move forward.
Are there any MedAccred supply chain success stories that you can share today?
That's a good one from our perspective, because we're fairly new into the program. But what we started seeing is, so we had, as we entered the program, became subscribers, we had our existing suppliers that were already part of the program, but we are really seeing a surge of suppliers interested in the MedAccred program to make sure that they've got this accreditation and that they are moving into that medical device. So I don't have any specific examples, but we are seeing, the excitement and the front wave of, I think, where this is headed.
So Danette, here's a question that came in. So how will Edwards ask their operations in different parts of the country to get involved with their suppliers? For example, operations in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this plays right into it. So from our strategy from within Edwards, we've got this network-based approach where all of our manufacturing sites that use the similar types of suppliers are linked together and that we've got connections with them. But we talked about, especially, we want to make sure that our regional manufacturing locations have access to suppliers, and that those suppliers that have the ability to have locations in globally as well are important to us. But similarly, we expect all those suppliers to have the same capabilities and to be extensions of Edwards manufacturing processes and be operating at the same level that we expect. So having that accreditation is the first step of that. And I'm not sure if we mentioned this, but one of the pieces of that is for the suppliers that are accredited, it's by location. So if a supplier has multiple locations, each location goes through that accreditation process. So for example, if we have an operation in Puerto Rico, that location would also need, that location would have to go through the accreditation process as well. So it doesn't apply globally. Each location has to achieve that accreditation on their own.
That's an important clarification. Thank you for making
Yeah,
this
that's a good point, Danette. That was a bit kind of caught us by surprise, because during the time when we did our pre-assessment and the time that we did our MedAccred actual audit, we actually acquired a building just down the street to just do our kind of our warehousing, receiving. And I got a bit of a surprise. I not only had to make sure that that building was on our ISO certification. So I had to do a quick virtual audit just for that building to be able to schedule then the MedAccred audit, which then took an extra day. They were actually able to work with us and get the 4-day audit, because all we do down there is just receiving and kitting parts. So it wasn't, it's just down the street, so it's not across the country or anything. So they worked with us really, really well with that and tried to figure it out, but it did kind of throw us for a loop. So that is something really good to know.
Right, and we have time for one last question, and this is for you, Danette. Has Edwards communicated the MedAccred requirements to your supply chain, and has there been a time frame that has been given?
Oh, that's a good one. We have not incorporated it into our system that it's a requirement at this point. So like I said, I think it's more of where the industry is headed, and those subscribers, we're starting to think about that. We are certainly asking the questions. So when we're talking to new suppliers, one of our first questions is, are you MedAccred accredited? Because it gives us that baseline. So it's not a requirement for us at this point, but it's certainly known within our supply chain, and they're starting to ask those questions. And for those suppliers that have that accreditation, they would have a step up in that supplier selection process at this point. So not a requirement, but it's certainly an advantage at this point.
Thank you. And then I saw one other question that I believe, Connie, might be for you. Will MedAccred also certify metal finishers?
Yeah, we would expect that the program will expand to metal finishers in the future. At this point, you saw the list of accredited processes, so we don't have that yet. NADCAP, of course, has that, and so that's a natural area that we might easily expand into. And each year we add 1 or 2 new processes to the list of accreditation. So that is something that's on the list for potential for future years.
Terrific. I would like to thank everybody for attending today, for our panelists and speakers. You've provided great information for us today. Scott, are there any concluding remarks that you would like to make?
Just real quick, thank you to Danette, Jim, Connie, Justin, you too, April, for helping with today's webinar. I think it was a lot of great information jam-packed in 60 minutes. I hope we've kind of furthered the thinking on some of the attendees. I hope you found it to be a worthwhile 60 minutes of your time. If your colleagues would like to attend a future webinar, our next one is March 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time with Scott Goolsby at Stryker, Brian Barrera with Trademark Plastics. And if you would like to reach out to me, there's my email address. And, we'll get the presentations out. Thanks again to our speakers. And we look forward to hopefully working with a subset of you in the not too distant future. So thanks again for attending, everyone. And we look forward to having another one of these here on Friday.